Welcome to the 11 Warriors show for April 18th, 2024. I'm Jason Priestess. That's Ramzy Nasrallah, Chris Lauterbach. Gentlemen, I'm excited that neither of you faked an illness to miss this show so you could cash in on a prop bet you made with yourself as part of the prop bet. Did I get all that right?
Toronto Raptor style? Yeah.
Jonte Porter, man. Like, big message sent, huh?
You get to the league, you get to the association, and then you lose everything for what? I mean, come on. What's the league minimum in the NBA? Guy was on an active roster.
I think I saw he made $21K on one of these bets, like on a series of bets. Like he bet 60 and won like 80 or something.
I think that was in total for all of his bets. Yeah, I think he ended up about 20 grand ahead, maybe.
For 20K.
He was back and forth between the G League. I mean, I agree with you, Ramzy, but he was back and forth between the G League and there, and now he's gonna have to go overseas or somewhere else. I mean, he's definitely obviously out the NBA. Props to Adam Silver. I appreciated the way that his statement was like, "Here's exactly what happened," kind of, and we're still looking. So I thought he handled it. It well.
Do you guys remember when Hugh Grant was with Elizabeth Hurley and risked it all for like? Yeah. One of the ugliest sex workers you've ever seen in your life.
Tiger. Yeah. I mean,
anyway, Tiger. The Perkins cashier.
Yeah. The whole history of mankind is a litany of bad mistakes, right? Spring game last Saturday. Scarlet, the offense won 34-33 in the weirdest scoring system every year. You got to be like, okay, how's this going? But it basically pitted first team offense against first team defense. And second team offense against second team defense. Defense got 3 points for takeaways, 3 points for 3 and outs, 2 points for sacks, a point for a forced punt. And offense got their typical scoring. And we saw a little bit of everything. Man, opened the game. Chip Kelly with the robust T formation, kind of like a nod to Woody. And what a way to ingratiate yourself really quickly to Ohio State fans.
Student of the game. That was I got a little tingle. The little spin around, and even though like the guys didn't really know how to block it, like once the ball was snapped, it kind of okay, well they're not ready for that yet. But the optics were good for about a second and a half.
I thought it was awesome, man. He talked after the game. He ran that at UCLA last year, so it's not for maybe they haven't practiced it much yet. To your point, Ramzy, I don't know how pretty it looked, but it may not be the last. May not be the last we've seen of it.
The short yardage situation, I think I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. Running like weak side, or running boundary stretch plays and like end arounds when you need a yard, that's gone now. I think they're going to have some worst case scenario 3-yard gain type of situations that would only fall apart with execution. So very excited for the running game, even based on that first play.
Yeah, me too. 5 quarterbacks had at least 7 attempts. Rushing touchdowns from James Peoples, T.C. Caffey, Sam Williams-Dixon. Dixon led all runners with 11 for 75. Some backup cornerbacks and defensive backs were ball hawking on the day. Calvin Simpson-Hunt, Jalen McClain, Brenton Inky Jones. Man, I love that nickname. And like,
phenomenal name.
There should be more nicknames, honestly, in college football. Inky is just a killer nickname, top shelf nickname 100% of the way.
There's like 78 guys in the state of Arkansas named Inky. I think that's where he's from. Everyone just gets called that there.
He's like Inky the fifth in a long line of Inkys in his family.
Inky
that's
V.
good. We'll take all the Inkys we can get, man. Emeka Egbuka stole the show with a one-handed snag. I guess he'd heard enough about Jeremiah Smith getting pub in camp and decided to do something about it.
Yeah, he just swatted it. It was just poetry. He looked like a ballerina.
It's interesting. I mean, last year, what do you have? The tightrope, or do they call that surgery? And I mean, he wasn't really, the same dude down the stretch. I mean, a little hard to tell with McCord, throwing it all over the map. But What was he? I think he was 40 for 500 last year, but 2 years ago, 1,100 yard receiver. So yeah, I think it would be unwise to forget about Emeka, especially maybe this year, where if is going to be in the slot a lot as these 2 other guys continue to mature. I would imagine a lot of balls are going to come Egbuka's way early and often.
Third play of the Michigan game, he could have had an 80-yard touchdown. McCord threw it at his calves, which that's hard to catch.
Stars did not play in the spring game in the second half. Most of the guys were out of there by then. No Brandon Ennis on a boot / little cart, but Day said it's not long term, so that's good news. Let's start with this, man. The defense, particularly the secondary, is going to be filthy. And you look at 6 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, held the quarterbacks to 5.7 an attempt. Now, granted, some of the quarterbacks were very young, but there's some good quarterbacks, some good weapons, and some good players, and that secondary is legit.
Yeah, they were disgusting. They look great. Ransom didn't even play. I loved seeing Bonsu, and now that Cedric Hawkins is in the portal, Bonsu's like the last bit of redundancy for safety play. This is a safety-driven defense. Hawkins pieces out because of what's coming next year, one of the best safety classes Ohio State or anyone else has ever had. So thrilled to see them, but if they're going to play 16 games, I think you need all those guys and possibly one more. But they looked great.
Yeah, Lake Hartford wasn't even in the mix with injury, and Jalen McLean's a 2 freshman. Looks like he's already passed Hawkins on the depth chart as well. So, loaded back there.
And Burke at corner, Igbinosun at corner, Hancock at nickel.
Hancock,
Caleb Downs. Hancock's amazing.
Yeah,
he would start for 99% of the teams in the country outside.
Well, he's 28, so.
Yeah, he's an older dude, but Jim Knowles went out of his way to talk about it being B.I.A. and, Caleb Downs to this mix. I mean, goodness, man. Burke said it was the best DB room he's been in since he's a little bit urban there. Best defensive backs room he's been a part of since he's been here.
Did that count towards the bet last week?
No, man.
Urban had to say it? Right.
No, I don't know if that counts, but it was the top secondary in America last year. Then you add Caleb Downs. Looking at Ohio State secondaries historically, this has got a chance, in my opinion, to be one of the best back 4 or 5s we've seen. And there's some good ones, man. 96, Springs, Winfield, Ty Howard, Damon Moore, Rob Kelly. 98, you had Winfield, Plummer, Barry, Damon Moore, Malcolm Jenkins, Antonio Smith, Brandon Mitchell, Donald Washington in 06. 02, you, of course, had Doss, Dustin Fox, Donnie Nicky, Will Allen. Chris Gamble was playing a lot over there. 19, you had a really good group. Am I getting ahead of my skis here? Or are you guys with me? Does this have a chance to be an all-timer in terms of secondary?
I think the bar is 96. I mean, that defense was giving up 9 points a game. Sean Springs didn't give up anything unless he was slipping on grass that doesn't exist anymore in Ohio Stadium. Damon Moore and Rob Kelly were absolutely solid. And Ty Howard got a lot of the traffic because quarterbacks were afraid to throw at Springs, and he locked it down. 2010. I don't want to supply slander that's unnecessary. Like Brandon Mitchell, Donnie Nicky. 98 would probably be second, and it's basically the legacy of 96. Or 98 would be second with 96, 97, 98. That's the best 3-year stretch of secondary play Ohio State's ever had.
Yeah, just jamming guys at the line, silver bullets, blitzing, and playing man for every down. And to your point, man, that man came back and hurt us against Michigan when Springs slipped. But man,
they didn't lose that game because of the defense.
No, they didn't. Just a tight one and stands out. Chris, you feel good about where they could end up historically?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I think just the amount of depth as well. I mean, you listed the stars on some of those teams, and they had some reserves as well. To me, 96, I agree. I think 96 is the gold standard there for sure. Just because you got lockdown corners like that. It's nice to have great safeties for sure, but corners, defensive ends, I mean, there are certain positions that are, that are a premium no matter what decade it is. I think the 96 group is kind of unrivaled on that list. I think you're sleeping on 02 a little bit, Ramzy. I think just Will Allen, Chris Gamble, those were NFL players for a long time. And obviously Doss is a collegiate, three-time All-American, only a handful of those guys.
I said I wasn't going to supply any Nicky slander.
Yeah, I feel you. I hear you. But yeah, I do, Jason. To answer your question, yes. I mean, just the amount of depth. I mean, I think it's not even so much they've got 2 studs. They do have 2 studs, but it's just the well-roundedness of the group to me, especially in today's game where you're really going to face a lot of teams, even in even in some of the crappy Big Ten teams are still going to try to throw it around the yard. I think this team, Caleb Downs, bring him in with what was already there. They've got a shot. I'm not sure they have a shot to be 96. I guess we'll see. That's the bar, but I think they could definitely be one of the most elite in the history of Ohio State.
Agree. If Igbinosun makes a jump from last year, he gave up some plays. He and Burke, you've got, if you're looking at the analog, look at Springs and Howard. They're, Burke is Springs size. Igbinosun, Howard wasn't a very big guy. and then Hancock, Downs, and then Ransom when he's healthy. That's a fifth guy. They just need to perform for 5 more games than the '96 team played, and they could be. We'll be talking about them on this pod in 20 years, 25 years.
Another key is the defensive line in front of these people, right? I mean, you need a defensive line that's going to help that secondary as well. And
they had
I don't know about you guys, but I feel
Winfield Garnett.
Yeah. But I feel a little bit better about this year's defensive line than last.
Luke, Fickle, some good lines in front of those teams. So, Chris, you like the older lines better than this line?
I think this line's got more to prove. I like what's there, right? But I think Sawyer looked great the last 5-6 games or whatever it was. First 6, you kind of left a little bit to be desired. I still feel like Tuamaloa on paper has not done as much as we all would hope. Very solid player, don't get me wrong, but I think both of those guys, Sawyer has to sustain how he finished. JT still has to make a little bit of a leap, in my opinion, if they're going to rival some of those older lines.
Totally agree. If they have like Vernon Golston walk-off seasons, Ohio State doesn't have to score any points. They'll win a game 3-0, be fine.
How fun was that year? Quarterbacks, man. Will Howard got to start with the first team, went 9 of 13 for 77, no touchdowns, no interceptions. I thought it was interesting. Day made it a point to kind of bring up his pocket presence and said you can't coach that. And I'm thinking like if he had someone in mind, maybe that was a recent guy that maybe didn't have the best pocket presence. Did you guys catch that? Did you guys am I out there?
McSkittish. Yeah.
I think it's awareness as well, right? Like, it's awareness, ability to move into the pocket. Sometimes McCord wasn't even skittish because he didn't even feel what was right there, right? Like, he just didn't see it coming kind of thing. I think that's one of the main things he loves about Howard is that, he's big, he will run, he can run, and that he clearly has a little bit different feel back there.
Yeah, trusting your offensive line can be a double-edged sword. You're looking downfield and like, I'm going to stay clean. You have to have like healthy paranoia, and that's what was lacking, the word healthy. If you can trust yourself more than you're trusting your line, you can make good decisions with your arm and with your legs. Yeah,
that's a good point. Devin Brown next in for the first team offense, 5 of 7, 66 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. Looked pretty good. Led the offense on probably their best drive of the day, cap with that 11-yard touchdown strike.
Who had Brendan Schramm scoring the first touchdown of the spring game?
None of us. There's 99.9% of Buckeye Nation's like who?
Yeah.
But get some guy, man. Get some, Brennan. Lincoln Keynotes started the second team went 10 of 17 for 71, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Julian Sayin went 10 of 17 as well for 85, 0 and 1.
We're going to talk about the wind.
He did lead on the wind. The wind led to his pick for sure, but that's something he's going to learn too, is that those long throws at this level with any kind of wind are danger zone time. Could probably get away with them in high school where the DBs couldn't cover the ground that they cover in college as quickly or have the discipline, but not here. He led all quarterbacks in snaps, man. He had 34 snaps on the day. So if you want to read into, they said he was in the mix, and seems like there's a clear, top 2. And Sayin is probably third on that in that group right now. Aaron Nolan played, exclusively in the second half, 5 of 7 for 47 and 1 interception. The pick he had was an end of the game heave, so we're not going to hold that against him.
Nope.
You saw Chip Kelly's touch with some of the quarterback run options and some of the wrinkles. Kyle Jones had something on 11warriors.com yesterday discussing some of the optional type looks that Kelly's bringing. So, and Kelly said they're not going to run the quarterbacks 20 a game, but you want to have that threat. And I think, for better or worse, that's been missing for the last few years. And it's hard to hate on CJ and be like, oh, that was missing from his game when he did everything else so darn good. But man, it's just an extra wrinkle and puts pressure on defenses.
Yeah. It just makes the Georgia game that much more painful. Like if CJ had been running all year, I still think we're still paying the price of Justin Fields getting his ribs cracked against Clemson in 2020. That kind of erased the QB run game for 3 years. Ryan Day has a tendency to be like, oh, I'm never going to let that happen again. And then it gets like, it changes who he is until he changes it again. We're running quarterbacks are going to be as welcome of a return for this team as special teams play. That's competent, and that's one thing. I don't know if we're going to talk about it, but I do want to bring up. They sort of glossed over special teams for the spring game, and it's been just so bad for 3 years. I was hoping that they would at least try to have some fun with some special teams play. They just had like the kicker and the kicking off to a returner who's just fair catching. Like, need to see that become a difference making unit again, because it has been the last 3 years just in the wrong direction.
Kelly, said they're not going to make a decision on the quarterback, walking off the field Saturday, and ask an interesting question. Who will best move this offense? And that's what it seems like it's going to come down to. Who do you guys see being that person to best move the offense?
Howard.
Yeah, it's still Will Howard for me. I think that it's who will best move the offense. It's who also will make the least amount of mistakes. And I think that that is probably a huge tipping point. I just don't think he came here to sit. I think it's his job to lose still. You didn't see enough Saturday to draw any huge conclusions either way. I didn't walk away totally impressed watching. Looked at Jones's film study yesterday, to your point, talked a little bit about footwork and some of those nuances you don't quite see when you're watching it at game speed and just watching it once, that probably go in Will Howard's favor as well. But I do think you said it, Jason. I mean, the best drive of the day was, I think Brown was 3 for 3 for 50 yards. He had a 10-yard run or something in that, on that touchdown drive that he completed the pass to Schramm for the touchdown. But could he stay
you're not
upright?
allowed to touch him.
Is he
that's the problem with Brown.
Yeah, could he stay upright? Is he still the best guy? Would he not make a critical mistake at the wrong time, kind of thing? I don't know. I just think the safer bet with everything that's around you right now, based on what you know at this moment, I think it still has to be Will Howard.
We've had young quarterbacks for a while, right? We haven't had a guy stay the full duration since when? JT Barrett, 2017. Since then, you've had one and dones and early departures. And look at who's won the Heisman. Look who's gone to New York City in December. It's been 22 to 26-year-old quarterbacks. Look who won the Heisman last year. I mean, that's what happens if JT Barrett stays 8 years. you get a guy like LSU had last year. Joe Burrow was in college for 7 years and didn't get a PhD.
Right.
When you have a chance to have someone like Will Howard, who's seen a lot, and then you've got the backfield behind him, and even the short yardage passing game available to him, that's the guy. You want to have an adult back there. It's got to be Will Howard. And I think with a season as long as it's going to be, and with some of the games that they should be pulling away from early, if this coaching staff, which is reupholstered and has some more wisdom on it now, can finally figure out how to play the depth so that they're not, after next year, they're going to have a whole bunch of new starters. They've got to get those guys some seasoning this year, and that includes the quarterbacks behind Howard.
Yeah, I almost want to say they're going to be forced to because of the length of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be on their minds more so this year than previous years is, hey, we've got a long run. And as good as this team looks to be, you're going to need guys to be good to go and healthy in December.
Pitch counts for everyone.
Into January. I mean, I think the Natty's in January 20th next year.
It's on
and that used to be
Day.
Super Bowl. That used to be like Super Bowl Sunday, right? I mean, it used to be like Super Bowls were held around January 20th. So
yeah,
it's a grind, man. Do you guys, I mentioned earlier, is Sayin still the clear number 3 in your eyes?
I don't think so. I would go Howard 1, Brown 2, and this is going to be scorching hot, guys. Nolan 3. I think that he just went in. I know he's playing with the 2s and the 3s, but he was also playing against the 2s and the 3s, and he looked relaxed. The moment was not too big for him, whereas Sayin was trying really hard. Keenholz was trying really hard, and Nolan went out there. And if you would have told me, I didn't know who those guys were, like, oh, it's his third spring with the program, I would have believed you. He just carried himself like a guy who'd been in college for a while, not like a guy who forfeited his prom to be in Columbus.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Sayin's still 3 for me. I don't know that I've overthought it, but I think to your point, Jason, I think you said he played the most snaps, something like that. I mean, he was in the first half. Seems like from what they must have seen up to that point, it was pretty clear where he was. Now, gaps could close, whatever else, right? Over the summer, there's still a lot to be done, and we don't get to see most of it. But I don't know. I feel like when Blowout City comes around in some of these September games, at this point at least, I'd probably be fairly shocked if Sayin wasn't the first freshman off the bench or the third stringer.
I agree, man. I think that Air looked really good. He played well, and he was ready for the moment. And maybe that gives the staff something else to think about. We're like, hey, we've only seen these other guys in practice, and we had a clear leader among the young quarterbacks in practice. But game type situation in front of fans, this guy's got a little bit of baller in him, and maybe that makes them look at this a little harder. But I think
run the play.
Yeah, I mean, I think still though, right now I'd have just based on what they've said about him, some of the buzz coming out of the practices, I think it's got to be Julian. But again, man, they could be looking a little harder at this, and they'll have more time to look harder at this. And they're gonna have fall camp and summer workouts and a whole bunch of other things until we get to the season. Did you guys hear they were testing helmet comms in this game? How nice is that?
We had the Cam Newton rule for recruiting. Now we have the Michigan rule for signals and helmet comms.
They changed the game. Jim Harbaugh changed, and Connor Stallions changed the game. Like, how many people can leave a mark on it and say they changed the game? But here we are, excited for that. Some caveats, man. It's a spring game. Brian Kelly, I heard he had a presser at LSU, and he's like, what do you want me to say? It was a spring game. So, I mean, they don't put a lot of weight in it. Smart fans don't put a ton of weight into it. It's fun to see, especially with like the new guys. You want to see Jeremiah and Caleb and whatnot, but it'd be wise of all of us not to take too much out of this game.
It's directional. You see stuff that like, okay, that means something. And then you see most of the other things like that means nothing. To your point earlier, if Ohio State's playing in a dome and they're down to their third quarterback and it's home, which doesn't really exist in this hypothetical, probably Sayin. And if it's on the road, I'd probably go with Nolan just because he'd probably not let it creep up on him. That's a morsel from this spring game. That's what I would take from it.
I'm sure Ryan Day is intent on keeping both of them as engaged as he possibly can. And we're kind of in the suck now, right? We've got 128 days, not until Ohio State football starts, just till any kind of college football starts. That's 4 months, 6 days. And I didn't know this. I think it's going to be our first game because it's overseas, but we got Florida State and Georgia Tech and Ireland. So unless they're playing at like 9 p.m., it may, probably be our first game of the season because, I mean, times aren't announced, but you got to figure probably a 1 or a noon or a 3 start there. And with the time zone, that's morning for us. But be waking up to watch Florida State, man. Can't say I've said this ever in my life, but I'm excited.
The crowd
to see
shots alone.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine turning all of Tally loose on in Europe? Like, that's going to go over really well. But 4 months, 6 days until we get to see pads popping. So here we are. Let's hope it's a nice, quiet off season. I don't want to jinx the team, but it feels like the last 5 years have been pretty quiet in the off season. Remember when we first started? Like every May, there would be something, whether it was like Jake Stoneburner taking a leak at the Bogey Inn at the Muirfield. Something like that. Yeah, there's something always in May or so that always happened, and I don't think we've had it much. And I was thinking earlier, and check me if I'm getting crazy here, but like NIL lowers the risk of bad behavior. I think that, and now you got some good counters. You can say, well, you can go buy a Corvette, and fly on the freeway. But I think
didn't we open up with a guy getting banned for life from the NBA for like petty wagering?
Yeah, there's that. But I think it may be a different type of fun, different type of danger. But I don't know. Just kind of where my mind went. I think with guys with some money in their pocket, they're probably chilling out a little bit more. Got their needs taken care of. Got food in the fridge. I don't know. Could be wrong. But we're here. It's the portal's open now. Spring portal, 4:16 to 4:30. Closer to home, we've had 2 Buckeyes leave in this session of the portal. Running back Down Hayden, word slipped on that about 10 days ago, but he redshirted last year, ran for about 550 the year before. And what's interesting to me is like 2 days before like the word of his transfer got out, he was telling reporters on the Ohio State beat that he was, quote, very confident that he could earn a role in the OSU offense with, Henderson and Judkins back there. And it's a tough spot. What are you supposed to say? You don't want to probably let that news slip, and you can't be like, well, I'm actually planning to transfer. I don't think I can play much in this offense, but kind of a loss. I think 4 backs on scholarship now, and then TC Caffey would be a 5th, not on scholarship, but obviously 2 very, very good ones at the top, and then Peoples and Williams Dixon and Caffey. Sad to see him go. What about you guys? Thoughts on Down Hayden's departure?
I'm going to be scorching, Chris. Do you want to go first?
Go for it, man. Heat us up.
I think the check cleared, and I think the second portal window now becomes a bidding war for guys coming out of the spring who may not be getting the playing time. They get their NFL aspirations dangled in front of them. Like, why don't you come and make some money and actually see the field instead of toiling for another year in Columbus behind, Chip Tranum, who couldn't block for shit. Excuse me. And then hearing, oh, Hayden's probably not getting in the field because of his blocking. Like, there's absolutely no way he was worse than Chip. And you hear that enough times, you start to believe it. I'm leaning towards that being true. For him to say what he said with our guys there when they had the press conference and the player availability, and then for him to peace out kind of abruptly two days earlier, I think it'd be surprising if he doesn't end up at Tennessee or just anywhere else where they're like, here's a bag, which is totally permissible, and you're going to get 200 carries this year.
Yeah, those are chicken and egg to me. I think that he could. I think the way he answered the question was he was confident he could earn a role, and I think he could earn a role. He could just earn a bigger role somewhere else, and if you earn that bigger role somewhere else, you're going to get money. Well, they go hand in hand, though. I mean, if you're going to go to a legit school and be the starter or be in a rotation kind of thing, I mean, you're going to get something more than you're getting being the third string guy here. So I don't. That's not to feel like I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I think he did feel like he could do something here, but it was going to be kind of what he was doing last year. But he knows he's capable of more, and I wish him the best. I mean, to me, that's the beauty of this system. It sucks when you're on the the losing end of that kind of thing. But we not that we're bitching here, but we weren't bitching when Judkins came in. I think this is just part of the deal now, and he's good enough to not be a third stringer. So go for it, man. It's easier for me to say that too after I feel pretty good. I mean, I felt good about Peoples anyway, but seeing him Saturday, I thought he looked pretty good. 13 for 59 overall combo, touches.
He's slippery.
Had some catches. Yeah, Caffey's a little bit more sturdy. Feel like he can run straight ahead. Just a thicker kind of guy. And Sam Williams Dixon. I'm not sure how much he would see the field this year or not, but I think he went like 11 for 75. But I mean, if you told me Peoples was going to be the third stringer instead of Hayden, I can live with that.
Yeah. And inducements are very much. Inducements are very much a real thing, and can't hate on a guy for trying to go get playing time. Cedric Hawkins, safety Cedric Hawkins entered the portal Tuesday. 0 snaps last year, a 4-star prospect from Florida. Ramzy, you touched on earlier, there's a loaded safety class coming into Ohio State next season. He's looking at guys like Bonsu, and then he probably didn't expect to have Caleb's on his team this spring, honestly. If he's, in early December, probably wasn't anticipating that. Playing time, was going to be really hard for him to get. So wish him the best and, go get paid.
He played
go
a
make
bunch
some money
on Saturday. I imagine, I'll openly speculate. He played a bunch, and I would imagine he got told after playing, like, this is what you can expect. It's going to be fourth quarter. Not a lot of people left in the stadium. We're getting a W, and that's what you're going to see. And by the way, here's who's coming in after you in high school. Well, they're already ahead of you on the depth chart.
I thought you were going to go the other way, and that they had an agreement that he might have told him he was leaving before the spring game, and they said, okay, we're going to try to get some film, get you some film for the other coaches out there. Wasn't Dion? We'll talk about Dion a little bit, but didn't he have some fiasco last year? He didn't want to turn over film for guys that wanted to transfer. You guys remember that? He did, yeah, totally.
You're talking about the guy that won one conference game last year and was on the cover of magazines? Him?
Coach of the year, baby. Yeah, prime time. Right. Are we still at risk? I know we talked last time about, and I think we're probably on the same page. OSU is still probably at risk of losing 1 to 2 quarterbacks. We're all in agreement there?
Yeah.
I agree.
And one could come, this week. One could come next week. I bet, just my take, I think we're definitely – Ohio State's going to lose 1 for sure. I wouldn't be surprised to see 2, but I don't know. Gun to my head, I think I would stick with 2. What about you guys? If you had to make the call right now, losing 1 or losing 2?
I'll go with 1. 1 to somewhere where he can not be in the fourth or the fifth guy off the bench. And if that happens, there's always a Gunnar Hoke somewhere in the banana stand that you can bring in.
There's always a Gunnar Hoke in the banana stand. That's right.
Yeah, one feels good. I mean, I won't be stunned if it's 2. I'm more worried about who it is more so than not worried, but more, paying more attention to who versus how many. I think Brown has said 1,000 times, like, you're an idiot if you say he's leaving. So if Howard and Brown and Sayin are here at least, and you got 3, and you pick up something somewhere else if you have to, I'd be fine with that heading into this year.
Yeah, sure.
Nationally, man, 24/7's Josh Pate. Some other people have been breathless about how big of a transfer portal this would be. And honestly, breathless. Like, I'm all for hyping the sport, but some of this is getting a little out of control. You got the casual fans on the internet, on Twitter, or, RCFB just going nuts and panicking and this and that. And you think that's going to pan out? I mean, it's early. We're only a couple days into this right now. There's still some time. You think he's right?
Until this becomes normalized, it's going to be, everything spikes at the beginning. All trends spike, and then they sort of, regress to the mean. I think that it's going to be audacious, and we'll be surprised by a lot of what we see this time. Then a little bit less next year. Then after that, we'll just have a number. We'll kind of know how many we can expect to bounce around.
Chris?
That feels right. I think part of the reason we haven't seen a ton is, if you're an Ohio State fan, myopically, it's like, well, spring game's over. It's portal, it's portal time. But I think a lot of schools still have them this Saturday, right? I think there's just part of the process. You got to get through, your own camp and that kind of thing before you potentially bolt. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how many it was last year versus this year kind of thing, but I would imagine it'd still be, pretty heavy. And I do think over time, you probably start to see it chill out a little bit as there become more and more horror stories about how it didn't work out.
Don't you think they're hearing like what we're saying, and they're hearing it from each other? 16 games, buddy. We're all going to play. we're going to win our first 6 games pretty handily. We're going to get on tape. We're going to increase our value for the portal the next time around. And by the way, we're walking into the playoff. we're going to play up. It would be bad if we hosted a playoff game. That's how good we are, because we think we can get to the second round. I think there's a pretty high degree of that this year. And if you see guys leaving Ohio State, in all likelihood, they probably had a conversation where they were told, like, it's probably not going to happen here.
Part of me wonders if we see something like free agency in pro sports, where, Kurt Flood was the first guy in baseball to be a free agent, and then it was slow. And then it became just like a very commoditized, regular part of the game. And the first time a football player hit the portal, because the portal came out and then Ohio State didn't lose anyone at first. And you're like, oh, okay, some of these bum schools are going to lose people, but my beloved school will never lose anyone. And then the first time, it's like when you first have a breakup with a girl at 13, you're like, oh, that one stings. And by the time you have your 8th breakup, you're like, yeah, it's just part of life, I wonder.
Bowl game opt-outs were the same way.
Yes, exactly. They hurt your feelings. The first one really hurt.
Roby's not playing in the Orange Bowl. What
He's
the hell?
not a real Buckeye. How dare he?
And then Marv did it. Like, yeah, why would Marv play in the Cotton Bowl?
Yeah, what an idiot. He's not going to play. Why would
10 years apart.
Yeah. I mean, exactly that. I mean, they get normalized, and so I kind of wonder if maybe this will be bonkers to some degree, but they're all going to be bonkers until they come up with a collective bargained kind of salary system, which is maybe 12 to 36 months off. So.
Yeah, well, they're just kind of making it up as they go. So
that they
eventually they'll figure out a system that makes sense.
That they are. Speaking of Prime, you guys see his 2 sons were trying to build Colorado's roster through social media direct messages.
Oh, I love watching him fail.
Man, he's good. You know what? He's great for the sport, though. Because Chris, you don't like him. I'm
Never
kind of
liked
ambivalent.
him.
Like sometimes I think he's funny, sometimes he's annoying to me. But all of us have opinions on Prime.
Yeah, this is a TV show, man.
Yeah, his relevancy cannot be understated in that regard. I want them to fail. I want him to fail. I have no problem saying it. I've never liked him. I didn't like him in college. I didn't like him when he played for the Columbus Clippers. I didn't like him when he played for the Yankees. I wish I could buy his toe off of eBay and wear it around my neck or something. I just don't like the dude. Don't like him. Never have.
His employer has a soft spot in my heart for Cordell Stewart in 1994. Doing what was then the most heartbreaking thing that didn't involve Ohio State in Michigan Stadium up until Appalachian State came in.
Little did they know it was going to get worse and way worse in the next 15 years.
Toledo.
Yeah. Toledo, App State. They had a lot. Yeah,
Michael Westbrook. Watched that live in the Varsity Club, and you would have thought that Ohio State won the national title.
I still love seeing the videos from the concourse of the shoe.
Yeah, people walking out.
Blocks that kick, and people are cheering like the Ohio State just won the Natty. It was incredible.
The Ohio State marching band played the Michigan fight song after that happened, the condescending tone.
Beautiful. That's what makes sports so amazing. College hoops, man. Let's talk about our dude, Jake Diebler. Like, he's cooking, man. Got another big one. Got a 5-star out of Kentucky. Aaron Bradshaw, 7'1", 226. Again, a 5-star high school prospect. Played in the McDonald's All-American game, which gives me a little PTSD because the last big we had that played in the McDonald's All-American game was Amir Williams.
And who coached him at Ohio State?
Yeah, that's right. Everything's lining back up. Dickinson's back. Like, everything's it's trouble again. But he's got 3 years of eligibility. A big get for Diebler, man. Didn't play a ton last year. Chris, you might be able to speak a little more to what he did, but about 5 a game in points, 3 rebounds a game, almost a block a game. But towards the end of the year, he sat a lot. And what was behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they had a lot of big guys, and they had another one come back from injury too. But yeah, he was like, I think number 4 prospect in the country, something like that. Yeah. But he ended up having foot surgery and missed the first month or so of the season. They got him in there. He was playing 20 minutes a game, and then through like maybe mid-February to the end of the season, he kind of was a 6 minutes a game kind of guy. So pretty interesting that how it kind of unfolded there. But I think there was I don't know. Nobody on Kentucky played defense, but I don't think he necessarily did either. I think that, he can definitely score around the rim. Athletic guy. Looks like a high energy guy. I think it's a nice pickup for sure. But I do think that, probably going to be behind Felix and just give you that ability to hopefully manage some foul trouble and compete with when you run into some of these teams you inevitably do in the Big Ten, like in Illinois, right? That just throwing waves of bodies at you, that you have more than one guy that you just can't get in foul trouble to be able to compete with him. I think Bradshaw is going to give him something like that at minimum. And I think they're really hoping that he gets potentially maybe more serious about basketball and can really, develop into the next level. Because a lot of people say, hey, he was number 5 recruit in the country and whatnot that year. Well, true, but coming out of the portal, I think he was like the number 9 center and the number 36 overall prospector. So nothing to sneeze at there, don't get me wrong, but not like the elite of the elite like he was coming out of high school. So tells me, big knock on Calipari that Kentucky fans aren't missing him as he really wasn't developing anybody. Get these guys in, and then, they kind of moved along pretty quickly and maybe didn't develop. So, we'll see how that works, Ramzy, with your guy potentially trying to develop him in Columbus. But I think he needs to put on a little bit of weight, develop a couple go-to moves, and people talking about he shot some three. Like, don't shoot threes. You're 7 foot. You're not Dirk Nowitzki. Like, scoot closer to the basket. That's what they need him. Get rebounds, assuming they can get somebody out of the portal that can shoot some threes because they haven't done that yet. And the Loco just went to Notre Dame yesterday. But yeah, I think he's a nice pickup for them for sure.
So he kind of slides into the 4 and the 5, you think?
Yeah, I think I think it's be matchup driven, right? Like, my guess is he would probably not start, but in certain situations against certain matchups, when you want to have 2 big guys out there, having that ability to do is great. And then if one of the others in foul trouble, I mean, to me, it's a luxury to have. And then if he does, I don't want to say get serious about basketball pride is the right way to say it, but they definitely didn't grow as the season went on. He actually lost minutes as the season went on, right? So how does he take that next step? But gosh, it looks like he's got a lot of tools. So hopefully Diebler and company can bring it out of him, because it's a nice pickup. And it's a real pickup, like Michi and Marcus. Those were guys, not to discount Diebler's work there, but I think that was kind of set up for those guys to go to Ohio State. He has no relationship with Bradshaw at all before this starts, and he gets him to come to Columbus. I think that's a bigger deal as far as recruiting ability than maybe what he was able to do to get Marcus and Michi.
It's different temperature. I mean, playing at UK for basketball, where every basketball season feels like this coming Ohio State football season. Mm-hmm. Like, it's always really high, but every year, like, okay, we have 5 guys that are all going to be lottery picks. We have to win it all, and they don't do it. And some guys just aren't cut out for that. Where maybe playing on the second most popular program in the athletic department is a good change of pace for him. By the way, I haven't looked, but I assume Purdue has a 7'5" guy with like 9 vowels in his name who replaces. They've had one since 1982.
Matt Painter owns like 85% of his net worth of 7-footers. Like he's just ridden that train forever.
They have
so I'm excited.
Guards. Yeah, it's an opportunity to play that, it's going to be, okay, Purdue has their goon of the year coming out. You get to play against him, and everyone's going to be watching you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have a big guy. Other news on the hardwood, OSU and Texas are going to meet at T-Mobile Arena in Vegas to start the basketball season, November 4th, 2024. So if you're Las Vegas fan, and who among us is not? Good weekend to go. Sometimes they're balling around Michigan weekend. A little tough to travel that weekend, but this is early enough in the month to get out and have some fun.
It's after Penn State, whiteout probably, and the week of the Purdue game in Columbus.
Very good. Last bit, man. Diebler's been on a run, but ran into a little bit of wall. Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Huddle, had reported that Ohio's nepotism laws came for Diebler. He tried to hire his brother onto the staff, and they would not allow it. And then you got guys like us. They're like, how the heck did Dick Tressel coach with Jim Tressel? How did Urban Meyer's son-in-law? How is he on the staff? It's just weird to me. It didn't. It doesn't seem like it. Unless something changed in the laws, which I doubt in the last 4 years. Why wasn't this handled better? It seems like from what you read, it's a big surprise to Jake, and he's salty about it. And it's like, how did we not get this across the finish line?
Yeah, the law snared someone that it shouldn't have snared. I mean, do you remember when John Cooper had John Cooper Jr. on the staff for every year of his tenure?
Yeah. Remember his daughter was working with Channel 6? She was all of a sudden a sideline reporter?
She got all the scoops. What an exclusive from your daughter. Incredible. How did you get that?
Coop knew what was up, man. He took care of what needed to be taken care of, made sure his family got paid, man. I gotta respect the guy for that. He got his, man.
It's a tough look because I think we were all expecting, just like Jake was. John was going to be on the staff. And by the way, he's a proven commodity. The guy knows he's still the best shooter we've had in the last 20 years. Yeah.
And then the rationale for Corey Dennis's hire was that someone else, it wasn't a direct report basically to Urban is kind of how it was framed. It was could Justice, who's the new associate head coach, could he have not hired the guy? Is this only something that can happen in football? It just seems so weird, man. I don't know.
Brian Ferentz reported to the AD and not his dad at Iowa.
But yeah, that's right. He did that, and that's how they. There's ways to get through these state laws are for your state tourism board and your the Department of Motor Vehicles. They're not so much for
there should be exclusionary criteria that's written into the law where it's not like me hiring a mediocre son who has no experience whatsoever in what I'm hiring them to do. That's not what this was. Stupid, man, administrators sometimes piss me off to no end. Can you think outside of the process of the GSOP? Can you just think outside of the GSOP and make a normal decision?
No. I love it, man. You get old enough in life and you realize that there are all these unflexible rules and laws. And the reason that all these unflexible rules and laws exist is because someone did something stupid at one point in time.
I can't remember
Consumer Good, read the back of it. And it's don't light this on fire. It's somebody in West Virginia lit that on fire on their dirt bike. And that's why
say do not iron while wearing.
Right. Yeah.
There was a rule. I can't remember it. I wish I wasn't prepared for this conversation, but when Penn State was playing Wisconsin, when the coaches were Paterno and Bielema respectively, there were 27 seconds left in the end of the second quarter, and Bielema exploited. He didn't want, or it was longer than that. He didn't want Penn State to get enough time to move the ball down the field, so he had his kicker repeat. They kicked off 6 times, burning clock every time, knowing they would get to halftime and Penn State wouldn't get the ball. And Paterno was like, "That's the way that stupid rule is written," and he took full advantage of it. That's we have to start thinking again. We need to start thinking again as a society.
I remember that, and that's something Brett Bielema would do, man. He was equipped to get around things like that. Always a savvy cat out there, and then glad to have the guy back in the Big Ten.
He may smell like ham, but the dude's smart. He knows ball.
Women's hoops, man. Jaloni Cambridge. Have you guys heard about this young lady?
The highest ranked recruit in the history of the program. Yes, 5-star
guard from Nashville, number 2 prospect in the class. Like Ramzy said, the highest ranked prospect to ever sign with the Buckeyes.
Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, basically, man. And, this is a team that's had some fun recently and had some success and, probably want to do a little better in each tournament next season. And they're losing some players like J.C. Sheldon, which is drafted by Dallas with the number 5 pick in the WNBA draft. Celeste Taylor went 15th overall, joins Caitlin Clark, who went 1st overall, and Kelsey Mitchell with Indiana. So that'll be a fun team to watch.
Yeah.
But, the addition of this 5-star Cambridge, man, next season's shaping up to be really exciting on the women and men's basketball front. And, women have been decent lately, but to have all 3 major sports clicking is a good time to be an Ohio State fan. I can't wait to get back to that point.
You meant women's hockey, right?
They're making their move. If they just give
Pistol.
them a barn, man, get them
Synchro.
something. Yeah, get women's hockey something, man. They're playing in front of 800 in that OSU rink. It's injustice to them. Last bit on today's show: the reckoning is coming in strange ways to Ann Arbor. University was hit the other day with 3 years of probation. For Harbaugh, they'll say it's a cheeseburger, which is a really slick way of using words to downplay or minimize the fact that he lied to the NCAA investigators. Lied to him. Like he would have been out for this. They don't understand that he had to leave. So fun to see him get hit with that, a little bit of probation. And, the NCAA is not going to punish anyone who's still there or the players. So it wasn't as hard as probably we wanted. But Monday, 3:05 a.m. and other Michigan news, Denard Robinson, you guys remember Shoelace, arrested for a DUI. Again, 3:05 a.m. Not hard to piece this all together. Single car crash. So who knows if he hit a curb, a fire hydrant, a park bench. I do want to know. But not a great look, man. He's on the recruiting staff. And in mid-March, they had hired defensive line coach Greg Scruggs, and he was arrested for DUI as well and gone 2 days later. So he got hired a week later, he gets a DUI, and they're like, okay, we don't need your services. Probably a little harder to do that with Denard.
Yeah, a bit of a legend. Whereas no one knew who Greg Scruggs was. He's lucky he didn't hit a person or hurt himself. Mm-hmm. I know that it's they get caught drinking and driving. That people's lives end and are changed forever.
Yeah,
doing that. And on a Monday, was there anything on that Monday, or was it just like a Monday bender?
I guess it was that Sunday. You probably watched the Masters on Sunday.
Oh yeah, Sunday.
Never mind. Cranked into
I forgot
late
how
evening.
weeks work.
That's right. Yeah, these DUIs are always from the day before usually. But he was in trouble in Jacksonville. You guys remember he got in trouble down there. He didn't get a DUI, but cops had to come. He was asleep at the wheel of his car with a passenger, and they had two tires in a pond basically with the car. And they're like, we don't think it was a DUI. We're not going to charge him. It's 4 a.m. I don't know, something. Dude's car was in a pond, half in a pond. I don't know. So
yeah, I hope that they reduce their DUIs and their wins over Ohio State in football, respectively.
Is this a sign that they're an elite program though? Off-field trouble? Because you know how the U set that standard 30 years ago. If you want to be truly great, you've got to create some havoc off the field. Georgia was doing it with their drag racing the last 2 years. Have they made it? Are they a legit power now?
They're going to make it when the next notice of infractions comes, because they just got a notice of allegations with this probation they got. And so when you get a couple of those, you get the LOIC. Is low-hanging fruit, the lack of institutional control. And they can blame people that are no longer there, which is what Ward Manuel did. He talked to this had to do with a coach that's no longer with the university. Oh yeah, Jim Harbaugh. You can
we know his name.
Yeah, you want to take what he got from what he gave you, and then dismiss some of the ways that he got you there. Very, very clever. Leaders and best.
As you were holding on to his ankles on the way out. Yeah, it's
right. Don't leave.
Bad look all the way around. And this Denard stuff is well. I mean, doesn't say much for Sharon Moore so far building his staff, but I don't know, man. DUIs are bad in any era, but in this era where you can get a ride, in the 70s you were walking, right? There's no Uber, there's no whatever to come pick you up. Again, it would be bad then, but I feel like now it's just ridiculously dumb because it is just so easy to not.
It's $11 at 3 o'clock in the morning. Think about there's no surge pricing in Ann Arbor Monday with no sports.
No, and he's presumably making six figures. He's got money for Uber. You're right,
or
Chris.
Someone to call. It's Denard Robinson. No one he can call that will come and get it. I don't know. It's easy to say, right? You're drinking a bunch. You're not making a bunch of great decisions anyway. But it just always kills me this day and age because it is just so much easier to still get feel like you need to go, but not be the one driving to get there.
We've all done stupid stuff. I do want to say, when I was in Bloomington in undergrad, Pat Knight, son of Bob Knight, got caught using a fake ID. And he got caught because they looked at him and you're Bob Knight's son, Pat Knight. You also start for the basketball team. We know who you are.
Is it Ted Schwartz on it?
Yeah. McLovin? Are you serious?
Pat Squire.
Muhammad. It's the most common name. Read a book.
Oh man, yeah. It's weird to even joke about DUIs, but you're right. Nobody was hurt, thankfully, and hopefully gets a lesson out of it. But again, Sharon Moore, clean your staff up, because when your guys do bad things, we're going to roast them a little bit.
Or don't, just be bad at football.
That would be nice too. I would settle for that. So hey, thanks for tuning in. Had a blast this week, boys. Am I forgetting anything?
I think we're good. Chris and I have to come up with takes for the next 4.5 months that don't involve live sports. So that's fun.
Oh, it's easy, man. The transfer portal and some of these other things have been like content gods raining down manna on us, man. It's there used to be actually time off. There's no time off anymore. It's a year-round sport. Hell, we'll have a team probably switch divisions next month. There's a lot of time left this summer. Like the Big 12 could implode in 40 days. Who knows what's going to happen next? But thanks for joining. As always, take care of each other. Be good to each other.